Hey y'all, and welcome to SkyUI Scripted. We are continuing our series on SkyUI Mod Configuration Menus, and in this episode we're focusing on the drop-down, the menu, woohoo! So, if you don't have a cool mod, you might want to go back to the first episode in this series where we get you set up with the SkyUI SDK. So you want to come to this episode with a mod configuration menu that works and shows up when you hit escape in the game and go to mod configuration menu. That's where you want to be. For those of us who already have a cool mod, let's hop on in. So launch creation kit however you like to do it. I'm just going to do it for Mod Organizer 2. You do it however you want to. And as you may remember, you can just go to Gameplay, Papyrus Script Manager. You don't even need to open up the mod itself. And just look for cool, and it should pull up all of your cool mod pages. Now, yours may not look exactly like this. I've been doing some different episodes in different orders. So don't worry about it. You just need to make sure that you have that base MCM page working. And that's the page that we're going to work within to keep it simple. So for that purpose, you can just go to your cool quest. So actually, we're going to open this up so that you can get the editor. I just want to show you the editor in case people aren't using the external editor. Right-click, edit source, and you can write all of the code for this episode here in this box. But as always, you know where I'm going. I'm headed over to Visual Studio Code, and I'll open up this file there. And I've got it open. Again, yours may not look like mine, and don't worry about it one bit. All we need to do is we're going to make a new page, and we'll call it menus. Pages 1 equals menus. And in our little on-page reset, what we'll do is we'll just say if page equals menus, then we'll do our stuff. You don't have to worry about what else is in here. That's from other episodes. So if the page is menus, we want to put a menu on the page. Let's say that we'll add like a header. So add header option. What should this do? You can pick like your favorite item from your inventory. Like not favorites, like the favorites function that's in the game. Like, I don't know, you can just say, this is my favorite item. I don't know. We just want to pick an item from a list. That'll help you learn. So we're gonna say favorite, most favorite test item. And then we're going to add a menu item. So we're going to say add menu item, or option, excuse me, add menu option. We give it the text. That's what's going to show up on the left, kind of in a thin looking font to prompt you, to tell you about what's in the message box in the menu. And then the value itself is this bold text that shows up on the drop-down itself. So we're going to eventually make that bold text match up with what the person chose as their favorite item. But for now, let's just say choose your favorite item, choose item, or like click to view inventory, or just view inventory because it's big text. I'll show it to you. Save, make sure this compiles, so just Control S for you, and I'm going to hop in game. Now we actually have these side by side because we didn't set the fill mode to top to bottom. We'll fix that. But here we are, most favorite item, choose your favorite item, view inventory. Then it brings up this little pop-up. Right now it's empty, and we are going to fill it with stuffs. If you want to make it so that your menu for some reason doesn't bring this up, you can set it to disabled. Like any other option, you can use that as a flag. So let's fix this so that it goes top to bottom, and then let's also make that menu show some stuff, shall we? Okay, so to fix that top to bottom, first off, you can watch my pages and layouts episode if you'd like. I'm not using that here, and I'm going to try not to use it in episodes because I don't want to confuse folks who didn't watch that episode. So let's do set cursor fill mode top to bottom. That's all you need to do. And now when you click on this, we're going to get an event. And to remind you what that's like, you can go to the SkyUI documentation on their GitHub. You Here's the SDK documentation, and here's option types, which is one of my favorite pages to go to. It shows all the types, and for each type, it shows you the functions that are available and the events that it will receive. So the way this one works is you don't actually populate it before it opens. When it opens, that's when you populate it. A little bit frustrating because I'd like to be able to populate it sooner, but you can do things to cache an array sooner, and then it'll just be available and ready, and we might try that. So what we want to do is we want to actually capture this on option menu event, and it'll give us the int of the option that was enabled, was clicked on. In this case, it's our menu. Now we don't have multiple menus, so we don't really need to get the OID of this, the option ID. Normally we would do something like this, int OID favorite item menu, and then we would set it down here, OID favorite, that's not it, why won't it autocomplete? Because I misspelled it, OID favorite, whatever, I'll copy and paste it. That's annoying. My Visual Studio Code is being annoying. Fix it, please. Fix it now. So we can get the idea of it, and then that way when a menu gets clicked and pops up, we can check which menu. So let's grab that text from here. This is the on option menu open, end event. And then in here, we can say, like, if the option equals OID favorite menu, then we'll do something. So we know it's our menu because it's the only one, but we should check that. And what we'll do is we'll populate it with stuff. Now you need to give it a string array. So if we want to actually put all of your inventory in there, we need to turn your inventory into a string array. So let's make a little function that's a helper that returns a string array. And it could just be get inventory as array, whatever you want to call it. And it's a function. And function. And so this will make a string array with all of the items. So inventory items. And to figure out what size it should be, let's actually first get the total count of items that the player has. So let's say actor player equals game get player. Okay, and now we'll say int item count equals, let me make sure this is big enough for y'all, item count equals player dot get num items. For spells it's like get spell count, but for items it's get num items. That'll give it to us, and so then we want to make an array that is the same size because we are going to put all of those items in there. I don't think there's is there a sort option that SkyUI provides? That would be super duper cool. You'd have to sort this yourself. There's some SKSE functions that I've seen in other extensions that do that for you. We're not going to sort anything in this episode. Maybe I'll do a mini episode on that at some point. And so we're going to say utility dot create string array. And now this is an SKSE provided function that you'll get if you just have SKSE installed, and you give it the size of the array. So in this case, it's the item count because we want one string for each item. And so then we'll just say int index equals 0 so that we can loop through the inventory items. So we'll say while the index is less than the item count, we'll go through and we'll get the item at that index, and then we'll increment the index. So the item, which is going to be a form, item equals player get nth form. Where are you? There you are. And then we give it the index. So that'll get the nth form, aka the item. And so now we want to put the name of it in a list. So we could actually just go ahead and instead of grabbing the form like this, we can just go ahead and say inventory items at index equals get this form and get its name. could have put it on multiple lines to make it a little bit simpler for you. So this is our array of strings, and we loop through, and this index goes up, and so every time it goes up, we put into this array the name of the item in the inventory, and that gives us the array. So then we just return the inventory items, and that's our get inventory as array. Now we're going to, in our on option menu open, boop, when it opens up, we're going to show those. So we're getting them and showing them. We can maybe try and cache it before instead. But for starters, let's just go through the list, get the inventory items, and show them at the same time when you click and open up the menu. So what we want is we want to set the dialog options. We'll use these other things later, especially start index, but we want to set the menu dialog options, which takes a string array. That's why we built it. So just copy and paste this, and we'll say it takes an array. So let's just call get inventory as array, and we can just put that in there. Now let me make sure this builds, and let me hop in game. And here we are. Here's our stuff. If we hover over this, we don't get a little highlight message. You should know how to do that from the option kind of overview, the basics of options episode, because you just use the on option highlight, and you can do that yourself. So we're going to click this. Okay, it took a second to open, but there's all of our items. So what happens if we click one and hit exit? Well, it just still says view inventory. What I would like it to do is I want it to say, if I choose a torch, I want it to say torch right there where it says view inventory. So let's go ahead and fix that. So first, what do we get back? So we handle the opening, but how do we handle when someone clicks on an item? Well, that's another event. That one we can find here in option types, and that one is called on option menu accept. And here, of course, is the on option highlight that you can do. I'm sure. We'll paste this one in. That takes a int for the option, and it takes an int for the index that was chosen. So what we'll do is we'll say debug message box, you chose item, and this index thing. So let me build this, so Control S save, and let me open up this in game. And we're in game. Let's try this again. Here it takes a second, but the options come up. Let's choose torch. You chose item 5. Let's choose the first one on the list. That's a lockpick. You chose item 0, and let's choose one of the last ones. We'll choose the iron helmet at the end. You chose item 19. So you just get the index of it. Now, what we can do, actually, this isn't exactly what I wanted to teach you, because I want to teach you how to map this to a form array. But what we should be able to do is actually, after you select that, set the message box index, set the index in that field to be what you selected. So here's how we can do that. When you accept and you click, let's just store the index that you selected. So let's say int selected inventory item index or something like that. And what we'll do is when you accept, we'll say, what did I call that thing? Selected. We'll set it equal to the index. And then what we can do is when we open up the dialog, we'd have to do something to get the name of the item, but what we can do is we can hop straight to that index. We can do that by setting the starting index, set the menu dialog start index. If we exit it out of this menu, it'll be -1. So I'll set it default to -1. If you bail out of the menu, instead of giving you 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, it'll give you -1. So we'll only set that default index if the selected inventory index is greater than -1. That might not be as necessary. You may be able to give it -1, but it also might totally explode and be like, there's no -1, yo. Okay, so I open this up again. Let's go to view inventory. There's nothing selected by default. Let's select the longbow and hit exit. Let me do escape first. Oh, I guess escape closed it for us and chose number 3, which was the longbow. Let's go do this again. Okay, longbow. It was there, it was selected for us. Potion of resist fire, exit, 10. If we go back in there, it has the resist fire chosen. So we selected the index, which is great. There's also this option for choosing default, which we'll implement in a second. Now there's a gotcha. If I do this iron dagger, right? And so that's number 2. Let's piece out of this menu and just get rid of our iron dagger. Go back into the menu. Now it thinks it's the longbow because all we're doing is storing the number. So there's some problems there. There's a gotcha. There's a couple ways we could solve this. I kind of wish we were using storage util. It has a great way to search for things in arrays. Let's do this. Let's fix some things. Before we deal with that, I kind of would really like it if when you select Potion of Healing, it says, instead of view inventory, it says Potion of Healing. That is the value that gets set when we create the menu item in the first place. So it'd be really nice if we could have like something like string selected inventory name display name equals, and it could just default to view inventory. But then when you select an item, it'll change to the name of whatever your item was. Now in on menu accept, and I'm saying message box a lot instead of menu. I apologize. I realize I've been doing it. Let's close this message box and continue to work on our menu. We don't have the forms here. We don't have the forms. We're going to change this because this is inefficient. But what we could do is we could say string array the items equals get inventory as array. This means that we created an array when you open up the box, and then when you click to select something, we're building up the array again. But whatever, let's just make it work first, and then we'll refactor. So what we can do then is we'll set this selected inventory display name to the name of whatever the selected item is, and we know that from the index because it shouldn't have changed between the moment that we opened up the menu and closed it. It's very unlikely. So let's say selected inventory display name equals the items index get name. Oh, it's already a name. It's a string. So save, build, and let's see how that works. So see what we're doing? When we add this, we're saying choose your favorite item, selected inventory. We might want to, because this only happens when the page resets, let's actually say string the item name equals the item's index, just to be a little explicit here. Scroll down for you. So we'll say the item name. I'm doing that because we're going to use it a second time. We're going to say set menu option value for this option. We're going to update that value. We're going to change it to be the item name. That makes sense? So we're saving it for the next time the page reloads, which we also have the integer saved for the next time the page reloads, and we're immediately updating the name to be whatever you got from the inventory. Let's take a look. Okay, I haven't clicked this. I didn't try it. Let's see. Let's choose Iron Dagger. Exit. Iron Dagger. And when we open it, it should be selected by default. Ha ha ha! Potion of minor healing. That's probably a little long. So it does that. That's an issue. So you might not actually want this text, choose your favorite item, to actually be there. You might want something like a text option with something right above this, or like click to choose. You might just want this choose your favorite item to not be there. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. There's nothing now to the left of the inventory, and above it there's this choose your favorite item. Both this and this have a text and a value, so that light text, the small, the not bold text on the left, that's to text for both the text option and the menu option, and I set it to empty string for both of them. And then choose your favorite item is right aligned because it is the value. So all I did was I have the header followed by a text option which has nothing on the left, but it has choose your favorite item on the right, and then a menu item which has nothing on the left, and then whatever we set on the right. So that's how we get this. So I'm going to view inventory. Let's choose something long like the Potion of Minor Healing. And there we go. This is looking way more professional. Wonderful. Now we do still need to deal with this problem. Let's just get rid of that Potion of Minor Stamina. You know what's going to happen. Let's get rid of all of that. Get rid of a bunch of stuff. Go back in there. Now what's it going to say? What's the text going to be? What do you think the text is going to be? Potion of Minor Stamina. We don't have that anymore. Open it up. What do you think it's going to be? It's on some random index that happened to be the same index. So we're getting there, right? We're getting there, but we really need to make this a little bit more solid. To do that, we really need to, instead of storing some index and string, we need to actually store the object that you picked, and then we should check to see whether or not you still have it. I think that's probably the easiest way for us to do it. So instead of keeping the index, do we still want the index? Sure. Keep the selected index, but then we'll keep a form instead of whatever we just had here. Instead of a selected inventory display name, we'll say selected inventory item, the actual item. So there's the inventory item index, and there's the item, which is a form. So we could actually keep what we're doing now, keep it kind of inefficient so that when you accept, we go and gather all of the items again. But instead of, oh, that gets them as a string, we would want them as forms. And you could do something like this. I'm just going to show you, and then we'll do something better. You could say get inventory as string array and get it as form array. And then here's form. And then we create a form array. It's a form array, and then instead of getting the name, we get the object itself. Forms and strings. So now the on menu open gets it as a string array. It just wants to put it, it just wants text, whatever. But that text will actually map up and have the same index as the actual forms, because it's the same list of items, And so what we can do is, we can say as form array, and then set the inventory item, not the display name anymore, to the actual item. So we'll say form array, the items, the item name equals the item's get name, because now that's a form. And then we'll say the inventory item equals the actual item. So let's say form the item. So get the item from the array based on the index, then set the selected item to that item, and then set the text to, instead of the item name, the string that we were holding on to, we'll say get name from that form. Now what we can do is whenever we render it, and we can still have this. So instead of selected inventory display name, when you render the page, we could say get selected inventory display name. So string, instead of this variable, we'll say get selected inventory display name, because now we're storing the form array, not storing the display name anymore. We just have this form, right? And so we could just say selected inventory item get name. Done, right? But we should see if it exists, see if it is actually set, and then if it's set, if it's still in their inventory. And we'll do this for the index in a moment as well. So let's do it for the name first. So we'll say if selected inventory item, that means if it's been set to anything. So if it's set to anything, if it's not, we'll return an empty string. Or no, we won't. We'll say view inventory. Get the display name. View inventory if nothing is selected. If, let's get the player, actor player equals game dot get player. If the player has at least one of the items, then we'll show the name. So we do get item count of that form. So we say selected inventory item. So if their count of that item, because it doesn't have like player.has item, instead you say player get item count of a certain item. And so if they have more than 0 of it, then what we'll do is we'll return the selected inventory item get name, because it exists and they have them. If they don't have it, let's also show view inventory. So we should be good for the name now. Yeah, we should be good for the name in terms of when you piece out of the menu, come back, and it reloads the page. If the item is gone, it should just show view inventory again. Now I came into game and by default it's empty. So let's look at fixing that. I showed you that this is one of the ways that you could do it if we were being lazy and incorrect, but we made this get selected inventory display name, and that's what we want the default to be. Cool, we've got our view inventory because there's no object selected, so let's select something. Let's select a longbow. It says longbow, and if we open it up, it should have the index of longbow. Now, let's drop our longbow. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Do you see it? There it is. Okay, we'll go right back into the menu. We just dropped that one item. What do you think it's going to say with menus? View inventory. Well, what about the index that's going to be selected? It still has number 0, 1, 2, 3. It still has number 3. So we can use the same technique that we just used and actually clear out the index. We can just clear out this index whenever we say that this no longer exists. So in both of these cases where we say view inventory because the selected item isn't something, or because the player no longer has it, we can just set this equal to -1, which is a common integer way of saying it doesn't exist. So now let's build that and go back in game. And now let's try this, what is hopefully our final time. View inventory, iron dagger. We can change it to iron arrow or iron war axe. It's changed, okay. Hit escape, it's still iron war axe. Peace out. Just realized there's one feature I haven't shown you yet, which is annoying. I want to finish this. Let's get rid of the iron war axe. Mod configuration. Menus, it says view inventory, and let's see if anything is selected. Nothing is selected because it was dropped. Now the only thing we haven't implemented about this menu box, and we haven't implemented the on highlight, but you can do that, is default. So this special thing where sometimes you can declare a default. So if we just say R, it doesn't do anything because we haven't declared one. So let's finally do a default and then we can be done. And the default for us can just like choose the first option or something. And I believe the event is triggered by on option default or no, I think it's what we do. It's our responsibility when we open up the menu to set a default. Otherwise R doesn't do bubkiss, doesn't do anything. So in your option menu open, you're responsible to set a default. So set menu dialog default index to 0. We'll just set it equal to the first one. We could set it equal to the last one or whatever. We could set it equal to what was currently selected. Let's do that. Whatever is currently selected. We could do that, but I'm going to do 0 so that you can see it working. Now let's give it a shot. Let's go to the menus, view inventory. Let's just do default, so R. Oh, bummer. Iron dagger, exit. Let's try R again. R. Haha. Something needed to be selected. So if something is selected, so if we choose whatever, then when you're in that menu and you hit R, it'll choose whatever the default one is. That's really, really, really useful for folks in a lot of scenarios. So just note that when nothing is selected, a default index doesn't do anything. It's just going to go to the last item in the list, and it's not even going to select it. You could get around that by starting with something selected. Right now we say the selected inventory item is only you select something if we already had selected something, which I think is fine. So let me zoom out a little bit so you can screenshot this. It's a bit much. Here's the top of it. Here's on option menu open. Here's these two arrays. And here's the get inventory display name. Now one thing that we didn't do, and I'm going to make this homework for you, is make it so that we're not calling these get inventory as form array and string arrays whenever you accept and whenever you open. What I would recommend that you do is you store the form array and the string array in variables up there. And then whenever like you reset the page, you can refresh them. So you could just do something like whenever the page loads, after we render all the options, we can kind of, while the page is loading, we'll just say form array, the items, I'll just keep this short for now, string array, the item names, I was going to make it homework, the items equals get items, what do we call it, get inventory as form array. The item names equals get inventory as string array. So now it's done once. Now when you open up the menu, instead of on menu open, us getting the inventory string array, we'll just use the cached one and we'll say the item names. And then when you accept, instead of generating this array again, we'll say the item is the item's index. It's already saved for us. And it might behave a little bit faster. Now let me show you what happens now, and that there's a trade-off associated with it. So let me click menus and then watch. It stays a black screen for a little bit. Now let me click this though. It's instant. Now it's instant. This is totally instant. So there's a trade-off. One of the things we're doing that's kind of silly, of course, because we have these two functions, is we are setting the items by looping through the array, and we're doing that twice, which is kind of ridiculous. So we could, if this is the only place that we're calling it right now, we could just loop through the array once, and we'll make a new function that will half the time by saying load inventory. And what load inventory will do it'll set these two variables, but it'll only go through all of the items once. So we'll just go through all of the items once. Here is going through the items the first time. We'll get rid of as form array. Here's the body of the other one. We're just going to switch these together. Let's get rid of that. Now we only need to get the player once. So we don't need to get the player again. We only need to get the item count once. Now we do need to get both a string array and a form array. We only need the index once. We only need this while loop once. This sets the items to the form, and this sets it to the name. And these are also both called inventory items. So we'll just go ahead and use the items, and then we'll use the item names. They're already declared. And so as we loop through once, we set the names, we set the items, we no longer have to return anything. We were just responsible in load inventory for loading the inventory. I'm going to build this and see if it's faster in game. And I'll hit menu, and hopefully this should half the time. Still a black screen for a moment. So it's kind of a trade-off whether you do that when you open up the menu. If you run that whenever you open up the menu, it'll open up the menu a teeny bit slower, but if it runs that full load, then when you do the accept, that'll also be instantaneous. So it's just a trade-off, and you can put that wherever you want. That's kind of it for us. We did a default. Let me close this game. Yeah, that went like slightly longer than I wanted it to, but I'm not gonna lie, this is the 5th take that I've done of this video. I've done it a couple different ways, and I've been trying to get it down to 30 minutes, but I just don't think it's possible. I think this is going to run closer to 45, 50, which is really unfortunate because I want more people to click into it. However, folks that watch this, if you need to make a menu item, ta-da! I will say some people, if you need to load a bunch of data that takes a couple seconds into your menu box, a lot of people will put a text option right above it called load, and the menu itself will be disabled, and then or just filled with nothing. And then when you click on load, then it'll perform the load, and then it'll set the value of the menu box to say like ready to click me, and then that will be instantaneous. So I wanted to get you to the point where you can do something as professional as possible and make it really, really sharp for your users. I'm going to try and do that with all of the options. I think this was the most complicated one though. The key map I thought was going to be more complicated, but it turned out to be pretty easy. I might do an episode on the slider. Yeah, honestly, the drop-down has turned out for me to be the most complicated one, and so I'm glad I showed it to you. I hope one person out there benefits from this. If you're that person, hit the thumbs up or just leave me a message in the comment. I appreciate it, and I just love hearing from you. Even better, let me know if there's some extra content that you'd like me to make. So thank you, everyone, and as always, happy modding. Happy modding, everyone.